Early in my career, I spent 6 weeks training in Japan for a new job. Now, this was a wonderful trip and it was a great time of personal growth and learning. However, I have to be honest and admit there was quite a bit of culture shock when I got there. This was my first experience in a truly large city, and one of the things that amazed me was the public transportation. Trains were everywhere, and you could go almost anywhere you wanted to with the purchase of a ticket. I had never seen anything like that. They didn't have that where I came from. All of the trains were clean, comfortable, and incredibly punctual. Delays were usually never more than a moment or two. There were local trains that went from one community to another. These were sort of like a subway, and typically they were used by commuters making round trips or people out running errands. On a few occasions, I even took one of these to work myself. They also had express trains that went from one city to another. These traveled a longer distance and they didn't come as frequently as the local trains did. Then there was the Shinkansen, or bullet train. This was a high-speed rail that ran from major city to major city, and it was fast. I had been at the manufacturing plant in training for a few days when I mentioned to my trainer, Mr. Miyabi, how fascinating I found the public transportation, especially the trains. It was a casual conversation, and I thought nothing else about it. The next day, Mr. Miyabi was showing Ken, another trainee, and myself something about a machine. We were standing there watching it run when Mr. Kimura walked up. Mr. Kimura was Miyabi-san's supervisor. He said something to Mr. Miyabi, and they had a brief discussion that looked very serious. Then Mr. Miyabi turned to Ken and myself and said, "Follow him." On this, Mr. Kimura spun on his heel and started walking off. We fell in line behind him, with Mr. Miyabi bringing up the rear. We trekked through a part of the plant I had never seen before. We walked and finally came to a door that led outside. We found ourselves on a small service road that ran behind the plant. Ken and I exchanged nervous glances. Kimura-san motioned for us to follow him. He crossed the road and started down a long, steep concrete staircase that was cut into the hillside. Ken and I followed, but we were becoming a little bit nervous. We could see at the bottom of the concrete staircase were the company's retention ponds for their wastewater treatment. I don't think this was part of our training. When we reached the bottom, we found ourselves in a small clearing next to a wooded area. There was a chain link fence in front of us. I assumed that this was the edge of the company's property. Kimura-san just turned and stared at us. I looked at Ken and he was as puzzled as I was. I turned to Miyabi and he had a big smile on his face. It was all a little bit unnerving. After a brief, awkward pause, suddenly a bullet train shot out of the woods behind the fence. The tracks had been elevated and I hadn't noticed them before. It was an incredible sight to see. It was going so fast that the draft of the train kind of pulled us into its wake, or at least tried to. And then it was gone. We turned to Mr. Kimura and he had a huge grin on his face. Without another word, he simply turned and started back up the staircase. We climbed up the Mount Everest of concrete steps, crossed the road, went back into the plant, and returned to our training session. Two things stuck with me from this experience. First, Mr. Kimura was very proud of his country's Shinkansen, and he was delighted to show it off. I thought it was very kind of him to follow up on the interest I had shown in the bullet trains. Second, the timing was impeccable. We were only standing there for a few moments before the train shot past. Mr. Kimura had calculated from the timetable when it would pass the plant. He took us at the exact right moment, and the train was there. Not only was this great hospitality, it was a good example of a leader going out of his way to engage with an employee. I have always appreciated this kind gesture. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, please click the like button. If you want to see more like this, please subscribe. It really helps out the channel.